Okay, we just finished another session on another core area that really you have to think a lot about if you're going to modernize liberalism, and that's the environment and, by extension, energy policy.
I would wager that every one of you out there overestimates the fragility of the environment. This notion of a fragile environment, our kids are taught it in elementary school. You see Anderson Cooper teary-eyed and weeping in the marshes, of Louisiana. It's in every website. My staff, they all believe it. But the evidence, the evidence is just not there. If you want to go find where's the best place to find the threatened and endangered species in Russia, you go to Chernobyl. Go to the Bikini Atoll where we blew up the last test of the hydrogen bomb. It boiled the ocean, vaporized entire islands. There's 25% more coral there than there was beforehand. And the photographs of it are astonishing. This notion of a fragile environment leads you to policy solutions. It means we draw a line in the sand. There's no compromise, no human activity, keep people out, and it just closes the options of negotiation. Sure, you can damage the environment, just like you could damage human health. But it really is nature's resilient. That's the bottom line. Nature's incredibly resilient. So forget about fragile nature. Mother Nature is one tough lady.
Human beings are also much more resilient than commonly thought, and this can have big policy implications, particularly when you think of the developing world's impact on the environment and climate change.
Here we are in Bangkok in a slum market, and you've got the sort of national train coming through, a very, very localized, Berkeley-like sort of farmer's market situation. And you can say that's good or bad, but what's interesting to see is what poor people in the developing world, all billion of them, do with things like that. This slide has gotten across to more people than any other that there is no stopping the billion people who are busy getting out of poverty. They are so full of ingenuity and resourcefulness and success that they are coming up in the world. And by the way, they're going to be eating meat and buying air conditioners.
Anytime you talk about the environment, at some point you have to talk about energy. And when you talk about energy, you tend to talk about new technologies. Some technologies could be real game changers.
One other element I urge you to pay attention to over the next year, the National Ignition Facility over here at the Lawrence Livermore Lab is on the brink of getting success with fusion that is run by light. This is laser light coming into a thing and hitting a peppercorn-sized piece of hydrogen, tritium actually. And if that goes forward, if we get ignition in the next year, then you are close to being able to get a real engine which can do these capabilities of really clean, really scalable, really grid electricity, and that would change everything.
Technology has a way of resolving debates, empirical debates, that science does not. And on an issue such as getting cheaper, cleaner energy, this is where it seems to me that the route to political compromise is obvious. You find where people have common interests, lower cost, for instance, and then set about doing it. And if we can do it, debate over. But if you really want to change someone's mind, put a modular nuclear reactor in their community and plug it in and send them an electricity bill.
Is the modern environmental movement relevant? Does it matter? Are we the group? Do we want to change it? Do we want to just ignore it and leave it behind and go build something else?
I think where environmentalism is going is it's going much more towards envisioning the future, but for nature. I mean, so there is a future for nature, and it's envisioning that future about what that nature is going to look like in the context of the realities of population growth and meeting our energy and food needs.
I'm reminded of the old Churchill line, all the old isms are wasms. And I think that sort of 1970s era environmentalism is really now obsolete, and no one wants to come to grips with that. Environmentalism is a pretty settled middle class value. There's really no constituency for increasing pollution and killing rivers and exterminating species. The fights about hog farming and those are important, but in terms of where the progress is in the future and thinking about the unsolved problems and the kind of things you're talking about, there I see a complete failure of imagination.
You don't get rid of the isms. What you do is you reorientate yourself towards them. and you take on, if you like, an Oriental martial arts approach, which is the ones that don't happen to be consistent with yours. You take their energy, and each of you is trying to slightly redirect that of the other. I think that that gives a flexible, pluralistic, multi-conceptual approach which enables you to keep different worldviews in a constructive discourse with each other, in constructive conflict with each other. And in that way, you precisely avoid locking into one single model of what my renovation is going to look like, one single model of the ideal of the future to pursue, because you're quite right. Those will never occur.
I can remember reading science fiction, and that was sort of the golden age of science fiction, where people actually wrote about ideas about what the future was going to be like. What was the potential of human beings that might be unlocked by technology? And I guess we were perhaps naive back then about where technology could take us. But that's almost completely absent now. And I believe that the most important element of a new politics, whether you want to call it liberalism or new conservatism, is to begin to think about the human experiment with high technology, which we're in the midst of, and want it to succeed in the sense that there's going to be a human civilization.
Coming from the kind of an urban economics, urban sociology background, it's just a story after story of these failed grand visions where we just fuck things up so much. I didn't say the C word. Let's look at Le Corbusier and public housing in the United States and urban renewal that destroyed communities. Let's look at, and we don't know the counterfactual. Maybe actually things would have been even worse if we didn't build high-rise ghettos. Let's look at the negative income tax experiment. Let's look at moving to opportunity, which just was a big bust. At least it was an experiment before we just went ahead and dispersed everybody. When I hear these kind of grand future technological solutions, I don't know. I don't want to know what the Earth's going to look like in 100 years. That's fine with me. Let's leave a little to chance.
This has been a fabulous conversation. Thank you all. It was a fantastic day. Looking forward to picking it up tomorrow. And in the meantime, relax, enjoy the beautiful weather.
Cocktails at
6:30, dinner at 7.
Get your poster
Toast
outside.
at 9. Don't leave without your poster.